Well, hello everybody, and I just wanted to thank you. This is going to be my Monday show that I'm going to be doing at 9 o'clock Eastern time every week. I'm excited to have my very good friend and business partner, Tina Michelle, on the line with me, and we're going to be talking about this. Is going to be more, I guess, I'm calling it the Monday thoughts of the week. We can call it the Monday motivation for all we care, of all I care. But really, I think I was really excited about her coming on. We have not technically, we did a radio show for Spirit Heart Cruise, but I guess it's getting close to 2 years now.
Yeah.
And then the last one we did, I think, was in 2014. When was the Angel Festival? Was that in 14 or 15?
14.
Okay, so it's been a while. That was the last time we did a radio show together. Or the last two. So I'm excited about having her on the line. Welcome, Tina.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And so I think one of the things that's been inspiring me to Tina, I don't know what you're feeling, but I've been really, is just like everybody else, the energy has been getting to me and pushing my buttons and my triggers. And I could really let that, I guess, get to me, or I could look at it and dig deep in myself and find out why. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at this time as this year is. It's really been making me face myself. So.
Well, for the conscious person, of course, they know to go within and they know to do self-inventory and find out where it's coming from. But there's so many people that are starting to awaken, and they don't necessarily have the tools of those of us who've studied for decades of lifetimes, actually.
Right.
So they might not have those tools. And some of the things that I would like to recommend is this. First of all, there is a dark side to the light chasers. We all have that shadow self. And that shadow self is anger and jealousy and just hatred and bias and all kinds of things that our current state of affairs as a globe, not just a nation, but as a globe, we are being triggered to bring out, just like they used to go through with the plague, ding, ding, bring out your dead. It's like, ding, ding, bring out your fears, bring out your angers. Let's get them out here. Let's throw them up and look at them over and dissect them so that we can release that heavy energy out of us. Some of us has been carrying it our whole lives. It's time to trigger. It's time to release. I mean, I have so many people that are talking about, suddenly they're talking about their mother issues that they've kept buried for how long, and they're being triggered with different things. And if you look around right now, we are a globe of fear. And what I talk about in the root chakra is it holds survival, it holds a fortune a lot of times, but it also holds fear, especially the words, I fear, I lack blank. So every fear we have, I fear I lack blank. I fear I lack security. I fear I lack social presence. I fear I lack a voice. I fear I lack blank. Whatever that is, you can fill that in. We all can. And it's almost like the earth's chakras are opening up. And her root has been opened and the fear is in the air, and it's a global thing, it's a national thing, it's a city thing, it's a regional thing, it's a personal thing, it's a household thing. Right. It goes all the way back and to the person. So when you have that fear of lack, what do you do?
I mean, I go into, if I go into the deepest parts of it, I go into a fight or flight. I mean, back in the day, and now I would probably sit my butt down on my couch and say, what's this all about? And, right. But, 15 years ago, probably wouldn't have done that. I would have been worried for days and weeks on end, worried about what was going to happen, that kind of stuff. And, obviously through the many, many years of practice, I can catch that a lot faster, but I still go into those moments. And
Yes.
and so, mine necessarily wasn't fear around the virus. It was mine started going into the fear of, do people care about me when I couldn't talk to them, or
Right.
see them during that time frame. And then, as I've been talking to those people since we've come out of the stay-at-home order, found out it wasn't about me at all. It was about other things that was going on in that.
Yeah.
And so those were triggers for me. And so it's interesting. I'm glad. And by the way, for those of you that are watching, Tina is an expert of energy chakras and her knowledge, and she teaches an amazing workshop online. I think she's in the middle of it right now, or you're getting towards the end of it.
Yeah, it's a year long, and we're halfway through.
Yeah, and I saw a few of the initial ones, so I just thought I'd throw that out there, that if you want to know somebody to teach you about chakras, it's definitely Tina. And
Thank
so, so with that being said, when you're talking about the lower chakras, one of the things I've been working heavily on is the solar plexus in the sacral chakra. And so, I've been doing a lot of the meditations that I learned from you from those couple classes. I just do the YouTube ones on, the hertz, the megahertz,
Right.
and for those particular chakras, and I'll sit in that for 3 hours, and it's really been pulling up all those things that I needed to learn as a lesson. But it's exactly what you were saying. The global consciousness is going through.
Fear of lack of control is hitting a lot of people. They're losing their jobs. They've been forced to stay home. They're being told to wear masks. Now, and it's not about mask versus maskless. It's about the idea that each thing you're told to do, you're giving up a little more personal control. But that strikes a fear. And there again, we have the fight or flight. We have people flying off the handle, just so angry. And I've heard them afterwards, they stop and they go, I have no idea what that was about. Well, it wasn't about wearing a mask. It wasn't about so-and-so took your parking place. It wasn't about, oh my gosh, now I can't go back to work. It's about, what am I going to do? How can I control the situation that is entirely out of my hands? And that's a huge fear that goes all the way back to childhood for most people.
Right. Yeah, that's powerful when you think about it. Like I'm watching people, and recently, and of course I talk to people of all walks of life, and I love, me, I love to hear everybody's version of things.
Right.
And what I'm really hearing is, I want to be heard.
Right.
And so I posted yesterday just a post that said, what would happen if everybody felt loved and heard? And when you really think about everything that's going on, I don't want to get into the sides of it, but I mean, I really hear a lot of people desperate to be heard. And one of the things I've been taught, and what I really truly believe in, is that if we feel like we're not being heard, like, are we really listening to ourselves, at all as well? Because there's a part of us that's trying to be heard within ourselves. And are we listening to that part of ourselves? And so,
right.
Is that really kind of pushing on that within ourselves?
And if you think about a figure 8, the infinity symbol, and a figure 8 going back and forth, when I hear, am I being heard? My first question would be, are you listening to others? Because it's been said that most people, I don't have a statistic for this, but most people don't really listen to what the other person's saying. What they're doing is organizing their thoughts of how they will respond.
Mm-hmm.
And you miss a lot when you don't really listen.
Yeah.
What
do they call that? Seek first to understand and then to be understood.
Yes. Yes. But when you're saying a lot of people, are longing to be heard, you are so right. I mean, and it goes from everything that's happening in our society, but one fast 15-minute look over your Facebook feed, and it's everybody wanting to be heard. the angry, the disenfranchised, the uh, 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 abandoned, the lonely, the arrogant, the self-righteous. Everybody wants to be heard. And so, I mean, in all honesty, when I look at all of that on there, it's like ear vomit, basically. It's just like everybody's, and instead of they're trying to be heard by everyone else instead of listening to themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of listening to what they're, why are you reacting this way? What are you getting out of it? But a lot of people don't even know to ask themselves the questions, especially those who are newly awakening.
Right.
The questions are, when you sit down to speak with yourself, why do I feel this way? What triggered me? And what's the first time I was ever triggered about this particular issue? What was going on in my life? What was the outcome of that? Did I have control? Did I have no control? Is that why I'm just bursting at the seams now and angry? Why is anger, if you are a person who is operating out of fear right now, why is anger your first reaction? That doesn't feel good. No one likes being angry. I mean, your cells get all upset in your body. Your bowels are like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? What's happening here? Your digestive juices are like, oh my gosh, I don't know if we can handle this or not. Your adrenals go into full force, and your brain gets hot. I don't know if you've ever touched your head or not after you've been angry, but a lot of times your scalp is actually hot afterwards. So, we have visceral reactions to all this stuff. So why is it that's our first go-to? It's not healthy for us. It doesn't feel good. Why do we do it first?
Yeah, and I just want to mention Rachel Boyer. She's making some really good comments there. She says fear usually wears the mask of anger because the fear is a weakness, and she's saying it's like we listen to respond and not to understand. And so, and I think that maybe our first response in that too is, what do you think is that it comes down to the control dramas.
Yes.
And so we don't feel in control of our lives. And so therefore we react, especially like people that are intimidators, and they start to lash out and call names and stuff like that. And the anger comes out. And trust me, I've had some angry moments. Like you mentioned, my head gets hot, especially with Damien sometimes, back like 10, 12, years ago, we had some pretty heated arguments, not anymore, but, and for those of you, most of you know that Damien's one of my best friends and my brother. And so, but, we had to go through a lot to get there. But with that being said, I think that through that, what do you think that through those times we learn? I mean, you and I had a fight a couple of years ago, and now we have the greatest of friendship.
Yeah.
And it's because now we made promises to each other to talk to each other, as opposed to letting it get to that point.
And if you recall, it had nothing to really do with you and I.
No, it didn't.
I triggered you, and you triggered me.
Yeah. And what do they?
Yeah.
What do they say, that most arguments come from miscommunication as opposed to actual? And so we literally grew from that, and I think our friendship became stronger. So in that sense, it was great. The moment when it happened, it wasn't so great. I think it really hurt both of our feelings.
But we had to say to each other, you triggered me, and this is how. And you said, you triggered me, and this is how. And, you have to be at that level to diffuse these anger dramas that we have, the control dramas. You have to be able to see that and organize your own stuff and say, okay, he made me mad. Why? Why did he make me mad? Oh, he made me feel. When's the first time you felt like that? When's the last time you felt like that? It has nothing to do with Jeremy.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where you have to get to. And I don't want to leave this chat today with people thinking it's not good to be angry. Now, it's not good to stay in anger.
Right.
make you sick, all these other things we talked about. But, you know, the root chakra is just as important as the third eye chakra. Everybody wants the Ajna chakra. They want the third eye. They want the psychic stuff. Well, it's only one of 7. And the other 6 are just as important. And that root, which says survive at all cost. If you have to go to war, survive at all cost. So when we feel that something is out of our control, then we fear for our survival, whether it's physical survival, psychic survival, spiritual, mental, emotional, whatever. We can go into that fight or flight. And that's when we lose actual control.
Yeah, and what do they call that? The reptilian brain?
Yes. Oh, yes, the reptilian brain. Right
the
here.
gatekeeper.
Medulla oblongata. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's something that, you know, you have a right to be angry. You are allowed to be angry. You are not allowed to be vicious. And there's a difference. You know, you're not allowed to use someone as your whipping post. You're not allowed to tear someone apart because it makes you feel better, because it doesn't make you feel better. It makes you feel justified until afterwards when you think about it and it's like, oh, that was bad.
Well, and I've had this is something that my friend and teacher said to me years ago. Those people have just injustice issues. You know, the people that feel that they have to jump up. And so you can see it. You can see the people jumping up and looking at injustice and arguing about it and stuff like that. And that's because they feel a lack of control. And one of the things that I totally agree with you on is that once you've gotten to the place where you're in a balanced state and you feel like you have to speak the truth, then it comes from a balanced state. And what I've found in my life is that when I've walked up to people and said the truth to them, it never comes from anger, but they really want to listen. I had a situation a few years ago where a friend of mine was really, really angry and upset. We were in the middle of a bunch of people, and I just leaned in and I said, hey, let's step outside. And they were still angry, and their anger trying to flare up. And I just kind of leaned in and said, they slapped my hand away from them. And I just kind of leaned in and I said, don't ever do that again. Now let's step outside. Right. And so, and I was very stern and very, I guess, a matter of fact about what I said, but it wasn't with anger. And so, and I had to say it because if I didn't, they were going to get in trouble and it was going to cause more problems for them in the long run. And so it was a moment where you had to kind of take on, what do they call it, the alpha role, as opposed to, taking a passive role. And then there's also times when it's just okay to not say anything at all, so, and I totally agree with you. Like, and I think that these chakras, these energy systems are really lessons. And, and we repeat them over and over and over and over again until we, fulfill them.
One time, there's a lot of times that spirit can use our own angers. Let's say that you're in a relationship, maybe a marriage, and it's been over for a while, but you stay in it. You stay in it due to longevity. I've been married 20 years. I've been here for 20 years. Well, you never hear a prisoner when they walk up and says, well, you've been here 20 years, bud. You can go now. They never say, well, I've been here 20 years, think I'll stay. Right? They're happy to get out. But there's so many of us, we stay through longevity, we stay from children, we stay whatever. And a lot of times, the only way that we will allow that natural break to occur is to have a knockdown drag out. Even in my own relationships, I will hold on well past sometimes the expiration date, and then there'll be a blow up, and then I feel justified to say what I should have said is like, I think we're done now. I think we're done for now. Maybe we'll meet up again in the future, maybe not. And just went with that natural expiration date. But instead, I held on, like holding on to barbed wire, and spirit had to use their anger, my anger, to create this big, brouhaha so that we could disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about it and you go back to your relationships and you look at the big brouhaha, okay, that's what we call it South,
Mm-hmm.
big knockdown drag out's what we call it actually. You just look at that and then ask yourself, when did I really think that relationship was over? And it will be previous to that you felt the natural expiration exit. You felt it.
Yeah.
But we hold on out of loyalty, and a lot of times that loyalty is to the amount of time we have invested. So one of the things I want to leave the listeners with is thinking of that prisoner. Would they stay because they've invested all this time? No. So
Yeah.
anger can be used for good, for the best outcome in the end, but it can also be used to destroy. We all know the anger is the destroyer, but for every negative, there is a positive. So we also need to understand that anger, as it's a part of that root chakra, as was given to us by the universe, as a part of our guidance system, it can't be all bad or it wouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm. We have emotions for a reason.
Yes.
And I love how you talked about, the expiration dates of relationships. And, I've had friendships that ended and came back years later.
Right.
And we came back really strong. And it's because we had to go, grow up, I guess, for a while. I've seen relationships that were, romantic relationships. They divorce, and 20 years later, they get married again.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's actually one in particular I know of that they basically got a divorce, and then 20 years, the wife went out and had a relationship with a woman, and then the man had several relationships, and then 20 years later, they met up at their kid's wedding. They decided they hadn't seen each other in years. And then they started just chatting about their kids and laughing about old times, and then fell in love again. But at this point in time, they had grown up and really started seeing each other. And then they were together in that relationship until the wife passed away. And so, there's just so much, because I think that, when you think about us being cells in consciousness, the cells have to go away sometimes. And what we're learning from, or what we're gaining, or the relationship that we have right now with that person's changed, and because we've changed. And
I think sometimes you just got to go and grow.
Yeah.
And then you can come back together as different people. See, that's another thing. The husband and wife that you're talking about that married young are completely different people when they marry older, because they've lived a lifetime in those years, and experience teaches us everything that we need to know, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I'm all for, I've got 3 different friendships that, we break off and stop speaking for a couple years, and then one of us will call the other and say, hey, what are you doing? And it's just like we just pick right back up. So, and I used to be embarrassed by that. So if there's somebody out there listening, I want to share something with you. Instead of being embarrassed by that, because, I've heard people go, oh, I've had the same friends since elementary school. And I'd be going, oh, I don't, But something you need to know is we have so many different soulmates and so many different points of light that we have agreed to work with, touch upon, speak to, guide, be guided from, etc., that there's only so many hours in a day. And if you have the same 4 people in your sandbox, you're never going to build any new sandcastles. You build the same ones again and again and again. So sometimes one of these souls on a soul level agrees that, you know what, I'm going to break off. We're going to break off. I'm going to go over here for about 10 years. I'll be back. And then we'll see what new sandcastles you've learned to build and what new ones I've learned to build. And maybe we'll get in a sandbox again.
Yeah.
So
and maybe we'll build a moat this time.
And when you can come to these realizations, some of the anger can ebb.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just I really like that because you learn better ways to build sandcastles or different ways to build sandcastles, and then you come back and then you say, "Hey, did you ever think about it this way?"
Yeah.
And that's actually you know, the one relationship I know about that we separated for 4 years, our friendship, we actually started talking about things we learned in that 4 years, and
Right.
so and it was great. I mean, it was like then it was like we went off on this adventure for 4 years, and then we came back and we really started talking about the things that we had done during that time. It was good. It was good to catch up because I had no, you know, a lot of times when you speak to your friends on a, you know, even if I don't talk to them for a month or two, I
Right.
generally know what's going on with them because I see their Facebook or, you know, whatever. But if you just stop being in somebody's life for 4 years, you know nothing about what happened during
Right.
that time frame. And so it's really kind of exciting in a sense to sit and talk to them and catch up.
Just like meeting new people.
Yeah, it's a new
all
friendship
over.
because you're new people. So
Well, one thing, one final thought I would like to leave the listening audience with is, although the things I've talked about, you may cringe a little bit, go, oh, because there is this thought that you have to be perfect to be a spiritual person. And we are perfect in our imperfections. That's where we find our perfection, is our imperfections. Because we look at those and we start to love those, and that's when you can become an authentic person. You know, I don't work and play well with others. Okay. Apparently, my first grade teacher knew this about me, and it took me 50 some years to catch on that I don't work and play well with others. So, but by knowing that, I save myself so much pain and embarrassment, because if somebody says, you know, work with me on this project, and I'm like, you know, I don't work and play well with others. Mm-hmm. So by knowing that, I mean, it may be shocking to them, but it's authentic. And understanding yourself and your angers and your fears and your fear that you lack something, if you start to understand those and start to embrace them about yourself, the more authentic you become, the less drama there is. Okay. The less pretending. I mean, my God, it's so exhausting pretending to be perfect, super spiritual person, you know, because there's all these spiritual pissing contests out there. You know, I mean, just be you. Okay. You are enough. Trust me. People say that they want Archangel Michael or Archangel Raphael to be their personal guardian angel. And I'm like, you know, you've got 3 angels, because one is never enough. We are all so deep projects. And as a soul, we've brought exactly who we need with us to help. We connect exactly with the souls on this earth we're supposed to help us move along. But I'm telling you, the less drama, the less pain there'll be in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, those are big things. And yeah. I really love how you talked about, you know, we don't have to be, we're perfect in our imperfection.
Absolutely.
You know, like we're so busy trying to be something that we're not, you know, and so I tell people, you know, when they want to partner with me on projects, it's like, well, you know, I have this very laid back personality, and I just wanted to let you know. And they're like, oh, that's great. I'm like, sometimes that can be very frustrating for people.
Oh, you really do. You have that laid back personality. I was stunned because I'm like, I'm all running around in a tizzy because, you know, red hair. Okay. I'm running around in a tizzy, and Jeremy's like, it'll all be fine. I'm like, shut up, talking so nice. I don't work and play well with others. I don't work
You sound like Justin. Justin looks at me sometimes. Justin's pretty calm, but you can tell his fiery redhead self comes out as Capricorn, and you can just see his blue eyes looking at me like this. So he's like, "Why aren't you getting mad right now?"
See.
Like, so, but I do have my moments when I get mad. Obviously, you know, I I'm not a, you know, I don't, you know, I have those moments, and sometimes they come at the worst times. So, but those are my triggers, right?
If you never got angry, I would think there's something really, really,
Wrong.
really wrong to where you may actually need some psychological care.
Right, because you're not in touch with your own emotions. So.
Because the people that's out there walking quietly with hands folded, going, oh, you know, they're the ones that go home and pull out their fingernails and patches of their hair because they are not embracing all of themselves.
Not in touch with their shadow side. I just want to post this real quick. It's something that Rachel put up. It says, isn't that 90% of arguments miscommunication is in misunderstanding because we listen to respond and not to understand that? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things that we just don't pay attention to. These are things that I teach in corporate America in communication classes.
Right.
You know, and I always tell people when I touch on soft skills in corporate America, you know, people will raise their hands and say, I'm an excellent communicator. And I'm like, I've been teaching these classes for over 20 years, and I don't consider myself an expert communicator.
Right.
You know, there's always room for improvement, especially in this area, because we were never really taught this growing up. You know, my lessons in listening were my mother saying, you never listen, or my teacher saying, you never listen, but never any skills on how to do that.
Exactly.
But those have to do with emotional intelligence and, you know, other things. So.
My mother's favorite saying was, those who don't listen have to feel. Usually a switch was involved. So, yeah, that was fun.
Well, I just want Tina to thank you for coming on with me for a little bit. And I would just so you guys know, her website is tinamichelle.com. I put it up earlier. And so I'll put it up again. And so definitely, you know, I would check her out. She's an amazing spiritual teacher and just a great person.
Oh, thanks.
And so I'll be dropping her website in the comments or in the description for the video as well, so you guys can reach out. But here's the website as well. I would check her out.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And everybody, peace and